Hi, welcome to the Maryland Council of Teachers Mathematics live coaches panel. We're going to have a panel discussion here, and we're happy to have you. So we're going to start, we have coaches here from different levels. We have some elementary, some middle, and some high school coaches. So we're going to start with some opening questions, but we welcome any questions that you might have throughout this broadcast. Feel free to tweet in your questions or chat in your questions, and we will gladly share. So we're going to start out by just having our panel introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Jenny Novak. I am the president of the Maryland Council of Teachers Mathematics, and we'll just go around the room. So Greta, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Greta. I'm a middle school math coach. This is my 6th year as a math coach. I service 2 schools, a primary school that I'm at 4 days a week, and then a secondary school that I go to about twice a month.
My name is Katie. I'm an elementary math coach, and I support 4 different elementary schools. I go to a different school every day of the week.
My name is Amory. I'm a middle school math coach, and I service 2 schools. 4 days a week I'm at one school, and another 2 days a month I'm at another school.
My name is Robin, and this is my first year as a high school math coach, and I service one high school.
My name is Matt. This is my 3rd year as a math coach. I service 2 schools. I'm at a primary school 4 days a week and a secondary school twice a month.
My name is Sorsha. I'm an elementary math coach. This is my 9th year as a math coach, and I service 2 schools, one school primarily, and then a second school twice a month.
And my name is Demetra Newsome. This is my 2nd year as a math coach. I serve at a middle school 4 days a week and a high school twice a month.
So welcome to those who have just tuned into our live broadcast. We're going to be taking your questions, so you can feel free to type in your questions or like us if you enjoy the conversation. And we're going to start out by, we're going to start with Robin. Let's start with you. Why don't you tell the group why you made the decision to become a mathematics coach?
My decision to become a math coach was primarily based on the experience I had with facilitating professional development. And I realized that the more I facilitated professional development, the more interested I became in making sure that teachers would have the support they needed that would lead to student learning. And so I sought out the opportunity to do that professionally, and in our school district, the best opportunity for that was to be a math coach.
Okay. Demetra, why don't you answer the same question? Why did you become a math coach?
Yes, I really, in my teaching experience, enjoyed collaborating with teachers and just seeing teacher growth and development, and then that kind of whole process and how it unfolded. So I really wanted to get on the end where I would be able to really work more closely with teachers and helping with just that professional growth and just that whole process of developing different instructional strategies and seeing where teachers go with that. So I enjoyed that process and wanted to go deeper into that.
And Greta, we'll ask you the same question.
Very similar reasons to Demetra, actually. I wanted to be able to reach more students, and it's sometimes maybe hard to do that directly, and I liked the fact that if I could work with teachers and then reach the 100 students that they work with, that I felt like I could share more of the things that I found would be of value to students.
Okay. I want to ask a question about, a lot of people say, well, what is a math coach? What is that job all about? So just take a few minutes to share some of the primary things that you do without, revealing any teachers' names or schools and things like that. But what does your day kind of consist of? What are the main roles that you do? Katie, I think we'll start with you with that.
All right, so my role as a math coach, I think my experience is a little bit different than the rest of the group because I go to a different school every day. When I have met with my administrators, we collaborate on a vision for the school or what the math professional learning would be. So at some of my schools, I'm teaching the teachers how to run data conversations, how to analyze student data and make instructional decisions. At another school, I have already built relationships that I can just collaborate and join in on their planning sessions on the fly, kind of weekly on the calendar. And some of my schools I'm just scheduled as professional learning. So every 3 weeks I might have a new topic that's brought from the math office and shared with the staff.
Okay. Matt, same question?
Sure. Some of the things that I do as a math coach, during department meetings, I will create professional development based on specific topics that I feel the team that I work with needs. I'll go into classrooms and do visits there to see the practices and the content that's being taught, and then do follow-up conversations with teachers to talk about ways to improve, and also talk about the things that they're doing really well. We'll also spend time doing planning sessions, going in during different planning times and hopefully with teams, to talk about next steps, to talk about units, to talk about instructional strategies and other things to improve the implementation of the curriculum.
Okay. Sorsha, you want to answer too? Same question?
I'm sorry.
Tell us about your day.
Oh, okay. So most of the time I am co-teaching in the classroom, which I have found to be very fulfilling, and it helps me see what the students are learning, and if the professional learning that I've given teachers is going into the classroom. So I do a lot of co-teaching, and then I also plan with specific teachers, sometimes once a month, sometimes weekly. And then the other thing we do is math planning, which can be weekly planning or long-range planning. So that's most of my day.
Okay. We're also taking your questions. We're not going to answer just math problems. We want to make sure that we're answering questions specific to math coaching today, but thank you for some of your questions that are coming in. Next question I'm going to ask is for Anne-Marie. So your job really involves a lot of confidentiality. You're building trust with teachers, and so some of the questions that we've come in have been dealing with how do you really build trust and support for teachers without breaking confidentiality?
Yeah, this is pretty critical in our role because you work with teachers more than you're working with anyone else, administration, students. So that confidentiality piece is essential, and it's all about building relationships in the beginning, and that takes some time. And when teachers do confide in you, or when an administrator does, it's sort of a really fine line. You want to get into your coaching role, and you want to make sure that every move you're making is what's in the best interest of the students, but you also want to keep in mind those relationships that you've built with the teachers and not break that trust. And of course, I mean, there's certain situations, as everybody knows, where you would have to, break trust if someone's getting hurt, but in not that situation, you want to kind of step into your coach's role and just make sure that you are you're making decisions in the best interest of the kids, and just keeping that teacher in mind when you're working with them, or keeping that whatever the principal or your administrator has said to you, and just making sure you're really just focused on what needs to be done instead of gossiping. It's not going to get you anywhere in our role. It's going to be the fastest way to turn a teacher away.
Matt, I'm going to ask you the same question. I mean, you're dealing with a high school, so there's a lot more members of your teams. How do you really balance that?
Well, since we do meet with within a professional learning community, we focus on content a lot. After that, I'll go into the classrooms and I'll be able to see the practices, and like I said before, but it's really more on those one-on-one opportunities where you're given the opportunity to build that trust and demonstrate that you can maintain that confidentiality. At the high school level, one of the nice things that I have is there's a lot of trust put into me by administration. So I know that they know that the job's going to be done the way that it needs to be done, and they know that what the role's supposed to be, and they don't ask questions like that. They know my position as a math coach is a supporting position for the teacher specifically. So if they have questions about what's going on in the classroom, depending on the phrasing of the question will depend on how I would answer it, but it's going to specifically be involved with content, not on individual teacher practices.
Okay. Demetra, I'm going to ask the next question to you. What do you think is the most rewarding part of your job or experiences you have as a mathematics coach?
I would say the most rewarding part would be that teacher that kind of maybe was resistant to maybe try something new or take a risk in their classroom, and them going out on a limb and taking that risk and realizing how much it benefited their students, how much the students enjoyed the experience, and then reflecting on the process and saying, oh, this is something that I can do. I can do this again. I see the benefit for my students. I see how much they enjoyed it. So let's try it again. And I think that's a huge success.
Greta, same question.
I'm working with a very new team this year. 2/3 of my team is new this year. So I've enjoyed many of the same things that Demetra said on a daily or weekly basis of pushing people outside their limits, helping them plan, and then going in and seeing it in action and the successes for the teacher and the students. But also the long term, I think, is a big thing of making some little notes to myself of things I want to share with the teachers. I've gone back to them and said, these are some of the conversations that we had in September, or this is what you had to say after a lesson like the first week, and helping them see how far they've already come in just a few months is very motivating, I think, to keep them going, especially when you get to this winter time of the year where morale sort of drops down a little bit. And I'm like, you can do this, you just did way more, you overcame way more. So I think helping them see it as the journey and the long term, and not just, even though the short term are definitely excitable and rewarding as well.
Okay, for our next question, I'm going to open up to whoever is interested in answering it. So when you're in the classroom, you have some really easy markers for whether or not you're being successful, right? You have your students as kind of a marker. So as math coaches, how do you measure your success? Okay.
So thinking about measuring our successes, over the course of a year, did math instruction improve? If we think about the exemplary program that we're trying to have our teachers fulfill, did math instruction improve? Are the students engaged? Are they learning? Are the teachers teaching the correct content with the best practices they can do? And also collaborating with our administrative teams. We probably cast a vision at the beginning of the school year for our math plan, and having checkpoints throughout the school year. Are we fulfilling the plan that we had for our teachers during the school year to have checkpoints?
And to kind of jump on that, we have our own staff learning outcomes that we have for ourselves, and we've had some flexibility in what we choose to focus on, and we've really been working to make those measurable goals. So we set goals, like my team this year, we're focusing on giving high quality common assessments and taking the baseline data on where your team is at the beginning and then measuring along the way, and just looking at how each unit test improves as the year goes by is definitely a way to measure our progress toward that specific goal as a team.
I was just going to add, in addition to our staff learning objectives, we also have school improvement plans. So another way we measure our progress is looking at the benchmarks that the county has for us, and ensuring that our students in every grade level is making progress in mathematics.
As well as our teachers are evaluated through a rating scale, and so if an administrator or a coordinator goes in and observes a teacher, whether it's a tenured teacher or a non-tenured teacher, and gives them a critical area to focus on and work on, as a coach, it's a good entry point for us and for the teacher, and kind of work on that. And when they feel successful and get their next observation or a walkthrough and see that success in working with you, kind of get it's not directly impacted on our evaluation, but to have that teacher feel so successful and you had a positive influence on that, and moving forward is another kind of great way to see our influence in schools.
So we had a question come in. I think, Greta, you had mentioned the word staff learning objective. So they said, is that like a student learning objective? Could you clarify what that really means?
Sure. So essentially for our math coaching position, it's the equivalent of a student learning objective for teachers.
And someone also asked a question about Common Core. So it was Common Core question mark. So I think that they were wondering if your school district is aligned to Common Core, and how you help support that in your role.
I know that our district is aligned to Common Core, and the math coaches spend a lot of time looking over the Common Core and the curriculum that we were using and redesigning it in such a way that made the Common Core attainable and reasonable to the teachers in the district.
And one of my primary functions is to ensure that what is occurring in the classroom as it relates to instruction is in line with the curriculum that is anchored in the Common Core.
And also building teachers' understanding of the Common Core standards, just some of the language there and understanding, translating those standards into actual instructional practices.
And not just the content standards either. We've done from the very beginning a lot in our school system with the standards for mathematical practice and really helping the teachers help their students grow. And now we've spent a lot of time focusing with our teachers on the teaching practices and then how those connect to the student practices and those behaviors that we want to develop in both our teachers and our students.
And in our district, among schools and the district level, we've done a lot of outreach with parents and community on building an understanding of Common Core for the community, at the community level, so for parents and caregivers as well as obviously teachers.
Next question I want to pose to the group, whoever feels most comfortable. We may have some new coaches or some individuals that are just starting their careers as coaches, and a few of you are kind of on the early end of the spectrum as well. But one of the questions we typically get deals with time management. So there's so many things that you want to do and you need to do, and you want to support so many teachers. So how do you budget your time? Like, what do you prioritize to start to kind of process how you start to plan for your week and with your teachers?
I sort of compare it to how they triage in a medical situation. You know, when you back out, you have to look, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges with our job is feeling like there are so many needs and so many different teachers that you want to work with, and you know, the periods never seem to line up the right way. So really constantly analyzing your team and where they are and what their needs are so that you can respond on a day-to-day, period by period, week to week, you know, depending on your focus of helping everyone, you know, and supporting them where they need the support. So I think it's an ongoing, you have to be very much in touch with your team and where they are, and being open to the fact that that can change on a week-to-week basis and responding appropriately.
Well, and that's to piggyback off of that, it's important to set up and design a weekly schedule. Even if it's in advance, it's good to have it. That way you have an idea of what you want to do throughout that day, throughout that week, but recognize that it's flexible. Things can change. You might walk in and realize that, you know, when you were hoping to see a nice structured lesson, they decided to throw a quiz in, and what can I do now? I can go to a teacher that's planning right now, and we can work on where things are going to go for the next week, the next class, whatever that teacher needs. And just recognize that it is important to have a schedule, but just be flexible.
Always have like 2 backup plans.
Right.
And I think priorities are important too, you know, also getting your administration on board with what your priorities are for your position, so that they understand that you know, planning with teachers is of high importance on my priority list. So I'm going to carve out a specific time to work with teachers or teacher teams on planning, and that time is sacred and should not be you know, taken away. So even if it's building a specific day that's set aside for planning, if it works that way in a schedule, and then building, you know, like classroom visits and other set aside times to speak with teachers and give them that kind of constructive feedback, building around kind of your sort of priority list of what's really important.
And I think what Demetra said is really important in keeping your commitments with teachers. So if, I think Sorsha said in the beginning, you do a lot of co-teaching, like you just don't want to break that commitment. If a teacher knows you're going to come in there to model a lesson or model a facilitation of a task or co-teach, and administration says, hey, I need you to run some data on some scores, it's kind of that hard balance, because you want to say, you want to please your administrator, but the teacher's kind of your first priority, and that's a really easy way to have them not want to co-teach with you again. And so you want to hold those commitments. If you've committed to being in a teacher class, supporting or modeling, that's got to be your kind of first priority there. And so I think transparency in your schedule too, letting your teachers know what the week ahead, week coming up, what you're planning on doing, even if, like Greta said, it doesn't always look that way and on the back end, because things do come up. But just this is what the plan is, and this is some of my non-negotiables where I'll be, and when I'm coming into your class, this is the day I'm coming in, this is the period I'm planning on it. It's nice for teachers to have that, and admin.
Something that helped me as a first year math coach was a piece of advice that was given, which is to filter absolutely every one of the things that will fly at you through the filter of, does it support teachers, does it support instruction, and then that kind of helps you, as Demetra said, set the priorities, and as you also mentioned, to make sure that you can maintain commitments and all the other things that were mentioned by the panel around the table. So that was beneficial.
And to train teachers at your building who have potential to be math leaders in your building as well. So if you're meeting collaboratively with teams to plan, hopefully they would carry on that plan without you in your absence, and to always check back in afterwards, whether it be an email or coming back the next week to see if that math plan could carry on without you, and then it inspires other people within the building.
Our next question is going to be to the folks who are servicing more than one school. So it sounds like most of you have a primary school that you're servicing most of the time, and then you have this secondary location that you're going to sporadically or a few times a month. And so I guess the question is, how do you really, when you're only in a building a few times a month, so we might have some math coaches that are not assigned to a specific place, how do you prioritize your time there? Because it's so much more precious. So kind of talk about how you use your time wisely at this secondary location.
Well, for me, one of the first things that I did was I try to make sure I can get the schedule for the department that I'm working with at my secondary school. And I try to organize a schedule so that I can see every single teacher that entire day. The goal would be to try to have a whole team if possible. It's really hard to do that at the high school level, since there are so many more varieties of subjects and of just schedules. But there are ways of making things work so that you can get through everything. Yes, there are plenty of times where you don't feel like you have time to even eat lunch, but in my mind, the opportunity to work with the teachers is a lot more precious, because at the end of the day, I can go home and grab something to eat then. I would much rather sit down with every single person individually if I had to, than to have lag time. But having the opportunity to go through their schedule really allowed me to be purposeful with when I saw everybody.
We do support math coaches being healthy.
Yeah.
Not in the mountain, so we just want to put that out there. Anyone else want to talk about how to?
Yeah, I do. I feel like one of the really important things is that you find a way to be present and supportive of them outside of the 2 days a month that you're there. So I make sure that every week I'm reaching out to them just with a, hey, I saw this activity, I was thinking about you, I thought you might like to do it with your students. Like, I'm trying to just keep the relationship there. And also too, I feel like another piece of it is I'm always very clear before I get there of what my schedule is, what our goals are for each, planning session, or if I'm coming into their classroom, that they've kept me up to speed on what I should be expecting to see, how I can participate in their class. And before I leave, especially when it's the back-to-back weeks that I'm there, we're very clear of what everyone's going to do in between the two meetings and when I show up the next week, where we can start. And I feel like we've fallen into a very good habit with that, and that there's that accountability built in. And like I said, the relationship continues, week to week, not just the 2 days a month when you just pop in there. So I think it's important they know that they can reach out to you anytime that you really are supporting them all the time, even if it's only face-to-face twice a month.
How about the elementary perspective? Because many of your schools, the teachers may or may not be specialized. So you probably have teachers teaching multiple subjects at the same time. So how do you bargain for that precious planning time with them?
So that's sort of predetermined already, in that we service our secondary schools every other week, so it's either math or reading every other week. And what's critical in that is really meeting with the administrators and asking them what their priorities are based on their school improvement plans. And then, like you had said, really coming up with a plan for every other week, whether what we've tried to do is do professional learning one week and then the other week service the teachers in whatever is critical at that moment for them, so that we have professional learning and also blend it with just servicing their needs, whether that's assessing a student who they have questions about or doing a model lesson. That's sort of how we've negotiated how we service them.
And also just thinking about how critical our planning time is, just making the session as effective as possible. The teachers are walking out with something they can use, knowledge that they can apply to their classroom, that it's not a waste of their time, to be really pre-planned to be effective during their planning time.
I think our next question is going to go to folks who've been in the role like 2 years or less. So our newer math coaches, you probably had some expectations coming into the job of like, okay, this is what the job is and this is what I'm going to do. I just want you to kind of walk us through what was most surprising about coming into this kind of role?
For me, it was how many people did not understand the role of a math coach. I think I thought it was universal, and because I had my head semi-wrapped around it, that most people understood that as well. And I think when I hear teachers surprised at the type of assistance they can receive, or if they come and they ask and they say, can you do that? And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I didn't realize that you didn't realize that I could, even if it's been communicated. So that was surprising to me, that not everybody had a handle on the support that was out there for them.
I also think it was surprising thinking, just like a first-year teacher, it's completely new. There's no training really for the job, in my opinion, in my role. You just have to learn on the fly. You collaborate with your other math coaches. You really have to individualize for each school. I mentioned that I'm at 4 different schools, and they're a completely different climate at every school. So I have to adjust every day. So that was really surprising to me. And also just the collaboration between the coaches, how essential that role really was. You have a new network of teachers that you're working with. It's not the same feeling as being at one school every day where you're in the hustle and bustle of what's happening, and the students might not know you the same way. I'm just kind of supporting the teachers. I'm a teacher of teachers now, so it's a very different role.
I think coming from a previous role where I still taught classes, but I kind of served in a coaching role, but not full time. I think the surprising part for me was how much more time I had to collaborate with teachers, which I felt like in my previous role it wasn't as instructionally focused. It was more so taking on other administrative tasks. So just the opportunity to really be more a part of the instructional process is what was surprising, but I liked and was looking forward to. So
Great. So everyone here is a math coach, and we all believe that mathematics instruction is absolutely critical at all levels, for our students. So the question is, with tight budgets, sometimes your roles are kind of on the chopping block of how do we help our districts understand the importance of the role, what services you do, and then how do you help leaders advocate for you to continue to have roles like this? It's not an easy question, I know that.
Well, I think Greta had mentioned earlier when we were talking about the staff learning objectives and the school improvement plan that was mentioned by Sorsha. Those are things that are used not just for us to make sure that we're doing our job correctly, but they're also ways for us to collect the data that our coordinators and directors would need to see to recognize that we are doing the job the most effectively that we can. Also looking at assessment scores is another way if we want to look at direct numbers, and the goal would be to see those assessment scores go up from the time that you started to the following year and so on. So I think that those are some great data opportunities to demonstrate it. Also, I think just staying collaborative and open with administration, with, like you had mentioned before, other coaches as well as your teachers. They all can recognize the different roles you play throughout the day, and they also have the ability to provide feedback if some type of survey or something is given out from the coordinators or directors.
And I think the ability to keep teachers current on new research out there, new practices, whether it's new curriculum, whatever it is, really having a person that's in the building who kind of has their eyes and ears on that information and can take it back to the teachers and provide them the professional development they need to kind of stay abreast on those things. I think that really speaks to our role as coaches and kind of the need for having somebody right there to help teachers through that process.
And bringing just best practices, new instructional ideas to ensure that all students in every school have access to the same rigorous math instruction, not just schools that do have coaches, but ensuring that our whole system has coaches to ensure that teachers can provide that type of instruction to all of our students.
I think in making sure that we show the thread that runs between the data that Matt mentioned and what it is that we do is vital to ensure that the value is attributed to our function. When we can make that connection between student learning and the means by which we measure that and what happens in the classroom and the strategies that are put in place that are directly connected to the support that teachers receive.
Just a quick note out to our viewers. Yes, we are continuing to take questions. So if you have any questions specific to mathematics coaching, that means supporting mathematics teachers and supporting mathematics instruction, we're happy to answer those questions, and you can feel free to have them keep coming in. I want to take a minute to talk to some of our more seasoned math coaches here. So a few of you have been in a couple different locations and schools, and you've been here probably at least 5 years or so. What advice would you have to, with your experience, to someone starting out in a math coach's role? Some lessons learned or some advice to share?
I think for me, it's just be a continuous learner. You know, your first year, you're taking everything in, and the meetings with other coaches that we have weekly is very helpful in sort of getting other resources and ideas. And then after your first year, you sort of know your second year what you want to work on, and you just keep building from that. So for me, it was recognizing that I needed more coaching and facilitation skills, so then I took coursework on that, and we received training as well in our county. So it's just sort of like looking at what the next step is in getting as much knowledge as you can with research-based practices, but also with your work with teachers, whether that's facilitation, whether that's coaching, whether you're interested in equity, and so you're interested in cultural proficiency and developing a vocabulary for speaking to teachers about issues of equity and excellence in education. So it's just, for me, being a continuous learner.
I think I was going to add on to the conversation earlier about the newer coaches, because this is my 6th year as a coach, and I've now been in 2 schools. So for 4 years I was at one school, and this is my 2nd year in another school, and I sort of felt as if I was a brand new coach just a year ago. And so it's that reminder for coaches out there that as you step into a different school, you may have been on a great path or felt like you really knew the job, and then you go into another school and you're back at square one, and it's kind of how I felt. And so I think that's natural. So if anyone around the table or out there is feeling that way, you're not alone. So we've all been there. And then I think it's really important too, as Sorcia was saying, to be a continuous learner, and just like we're involved with the Maryland Council of Teachers of Mathematics, get involved in your state and national organizations like NCTM or NCSM or AMT around math teaching and coaching, and it's the building that community and getting involved in their organizations and reading their journals and research materials are really helpful, and to know that there's people in our role all over the place, and we can support each other. And then also just remembering that you're on the ground of the school, so you're right there with the teachers, and that's what everything you do is for them, for the students. You're making a difference, even if you don't get that same satisfaction as Jenny mentioned earlier, and that like light bulb going off in a student that you might see on a daily basis as a teacher. Hopefully, probably don't get that kind of, at least I don't, on a daily basis from teachers. But when I do, it's a big impact, and it's for something huge that maybe I've come a long way to get a team to be, or I've worked with that teacher, and it might take several planning sessions over several weeks or months to actually have that happen, but it does, and you're making progress. So if you don't see that progress, you're still making progress. As long as you have your goals in mind, then and you stick to them, and keep working, you're in a good space.
Yeah, I want to tie into both of the big points that Anne-Marie said. The goal setting piece of having reasonable short-term and long-term goals for yourself and also for your teachers, but I think that's kind of a big thing that we're constantly like focusing in and then having to back out and see the big picture and trying to balance those pieces. But transitioning to a new school, so this is my 6th year also, and I had 5 years at one school, and then I'm at a new school this year, and it just reminds you of one of the first things we started with, of how much the relationship building is the important piece, because I think for both of us, probably when you started a new school, the reason you feel like you're doing it for the first time is because you're starting over with the relationships that you have to build. And I'm sure for you guys that are at schools even less frequently than us, it's the big challenge of learning the culture of the building, because that helps define your job and your role and your administration, and then working with your new staff of teachers and kind of helping them identify their strengths and their areas where they would like to grow. And that's really then what ends up kind of guiding a lot of your work.
So we had a question, and I think you started to address it a little bit. A question had come in about, I think someone had mentioned that they meet weekly with other math coaches in their district. And so some districts have built-in time where math coaches can come together and learn and receive professional development. In other places, there may be, in certain districts, just one math coach for the entire district, or one that services multiple places. And so I think that there's some individuals are asking questions along the lines of, where do we go for support? So you said we should network, and how do we do that? And so you mentioned some of these organizations, but they may or may not be familiar with them. So if you want to kind of share one or two organizations or resources or ways that you've connected with others, that might be helpful.
Well, for me, one of the big ones was NCSM, which is the National Council for Supervisors of Mathematics. I thought that was fantastic, not just because of the people I got to meet, but also the training that was there. It's professional development for coaches specifically, and that was something I was able to do during my 2nd year as a math coach, and I honestly felt like I gained a lot from that. But while being there, I was able to connect with people on the other side of the United States, out in California, and places in between. And I still share some resources with a couple of them throughout. And every once in a while, we have the opportunity to meet up and see each other again and touch base again and remind each other that, that we're not alone when there's a struggle, that it's always good to look outside of your district at times, and they're there ready to go. But again, NCSM I thought was a wonderful opportunity for me.
And you're referring to the conference, the annual conference?
Yes.
So I would definitely echo what Matt's saying there. And another benefit of NCSM is their website has a lot of resources on there, and they have a coaching corner on there that I think has a lot of great sort of ready to go professional development that you can use with your teams, and things that really just enhance your own understanding and your knowledge of your position, and ways that you can support teachers.
So if you're not familiar, the website for NCSM is math@leadership.org, and I think someone had posted that as well. Any other organizations or resources that you find valuable?
For those of you who are elementary math coaches, there's also the Elementary Mathematics Specialists and Teacher Leaders Project, and so that's another site that you can go to and find resources, whether it's publications, videos, professional learning. That's also another good
I always think about your state organization, like our MCTM. I think the great thing is that for a lot of the teachers that we work with, they view an organization at the state level like MCTM to be much more accessible to them. So I think that a great thing is, every year when the conference is held, to encourage our teachers to present or to co-present with them. I think it's such a great way to pass along and grow the importance of math leadership that we're kind of raising our little kids to follow, because that's the reality. I mean, that's our goal. We want to empower our teachers and realize that they have as many things to share with their colleagues as we do, certainly. So I think that state level organizations are a great way for people to get started and in seeing what an active role they can play.
Well, thank you for that plug. I didn't. But yes, so Teachers in Mathematics is definitely looking to support our math coaches in the state and connect them in different ways. So this is one of the avenues that we have explored, and to try to get a outreach to larger borders in terms of how we can service and support and nurture our math coaches. And so we are always looking for interested individuals who would like to participate in our organization through presentations, through being active members of the board or volunteers and such. So you can reach out to us, and you have our hashtag, and we also have a Facebook open group as well. Our website is marylandmath.org, and so you can join that as well. I want us to go back to this idea of surprise and things you didn't expect as well. We've talked a lot about things surprising, but what was your biggest challenge that you faced in your job, without getting into too much detail? Something that kind of threw a curveball at you that you didn't expect.
You say it like it's past tense, and I sort of think it's maybe an ongoing struggle for me or for a lot of us. Is I think resurrecting the mission that we get from our curricular office with our in-house administration and their goals for us or for the math team, and then our own professional philosophy. I think that's an ongoing challenge, is trying to have all those things exist in tandem and really finding the good balance, to go back to what Robin said, of answering that question of, is this what is best for the math teachers? Is this what is best for the math instruction in my building? So I think that we have to fight a lot of good battles, that I think that we fight from a good place, but really just kind of taking everything and meshing it together, and then kind of coming up with the best that we can do. That I feel like that's an ongoing challenge for me, and that it's one that you start over when you start in a new school, even if you've already been in the position. So.
And I think
every day.
I was thinking too, with Matt mentioning about not eating lunch, and we definitely eat lunch. There's time for that.
Keep worried here.
But also when I'm mentioning that I'm supporting a different school every day, finding time to plan for my Tuesday school at my Monday school is a little bit difficult. So I'm spending my whole time on my Monday school working with all the teachers throughout the day, but I still need to be ready for my Tuesday school with a whole different set of teachers. And I like to stay really busy, and I don't want to be sitting at a desk getting ready, but there has to be a point. And just finding the balance between home and work, and just loving working anyway. I do love that. I'm a higher energy type of person to put my full investment into my job, but just finding that balance of how to get ready for tomorrow's school today.
It was also kind of neat seeing the connections you can make from being a classroom teacher as a coach. For one, the importance of reflection. As a teacher, you're supposed to reflect on your lesson every day to make sure that things went the way they were supposed to, and if they weren't, how can I make it better? As a math coach, we should be reflecting every day as well. We should be reflecting on how the co-teaching sessions went, how the planning sessions went, and what didn't go well. What can I do better the next time to make it more meaningful to the staff? Or what really did go well? How can I do that again with this other group? Because just like a class that you would teach every day, the professional learning community, the team that you're working with, will change from subject to subject, and how they react to different things and the needs that they have will change. But utilizing some of the strategies that were implemented as a teacher with a classroom, I think also can be used as a math coach.
And I think Greta had mentioned at one point, like, kind of this push and pull type of process where, you know, we realize in our coaching role we're non-evaluative. We're more in a supportive role, so it's kind of like, you know, as we support, we want to, you know, push teachers forward, have them take risks and try new things, but then we recognize times where we have to kind of pull back a little bit, and, you know, maybe they aren't quite ready, or they're resistant a little bit, and just finding that balance of how to keep, you know, persistent, you know, be persistent and keep pushing teachers to, you know, reach to that next level, but then recognizing when you might need to pull back a little bit is a challenge. And then, you know, having those tough conversations even though you are not non-evaluative. So, you know, still trying to have that balance and keep a good positive relationship with the teacher as well.
I want us to think about where you are now, and then also consider individuals who might be thinking about becoming a math coach or interested in training for being a math coach. And I know some of you have had different paths to get here, and so some of you may have gone through certain programs to prepare you. Some of you may have been put in the role and then realized, oh, I need to get some professional learning. But I want us to focus just for a minute on professional learning. So if you had to kind of assess everything that you've done, whether it's been through your school system or independently, what has been the most valuable either professional learning experience or book that you've read or something that you would say has kind of been your guide or helped you to become a better math coach?
I think in my school system, it's been having the opportunity to network with other math coaches. It's been invaluable because in addition to the wonderful book studies and coursework and other professional development, having an opportunity to connect with people who are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, facing the same challenges that I'm facing, and have gleaned some form of wisdom through their experience of having done it for years, has been invaluable for me. So that apart from any other coursework or any studies whatsoever in professional journals or organizations, that has been beneficial to me.
For me, I mentioned the conference, the NCSM conference, and you know, we heard earlier that not everybody has a team of coaches within their district that they can plan with, and that's a great opportunity to really network with other coaches and get some professional learning that you may not see within your own district. That's specifically geared towards math leadership, which you don't always see at teacher conferences the same way. So I would definitely recommend NCSM for that purpose.
Yeah, I think the national conference is what has consistently made a difference for me. It's where I go and I get rejuvenated and I get re-excited about things, and it's all self-selected. I go to sessions that are meeting my needs right then. I go to some sessions or I talk to some colleagues there, and you get that affirmation of the good things that you're doing, and you get some ideas for the things that you're wanting to improve on. So I feel like that's hands down the best professional learning for me, because it hits on so many different areas, and it also just gives you that, honestly, the emotional boost that you need to keep going. So that's what I'd have to go with. And then you find out about the newest books that you want to go and read, and it's sort of the gateway to all of the other professional learning that you end up engaging in the next year.
I really like the Prime Leadership books. If you guys have read those, I'm not sure, but and also the PLC at Work. Those have been great to go back on. They're highlighted a lot, and I've got a lot of sticky notes and post-its on them, and I refer back to them often. I think if you can find a book on coaching, if that's where you feel like you need to get kind of hone in on some skills, that would be good. I think you kind of have to, you can read a lot of books, and some of them will resonate, and some of them, and I feel like if I have to read a paragraph a couple of times, it's just not the book for me. It just might not be, maybe it's a book for me next year or next month, but during the school year, if it's going to take a lot of energy for me to get through something, I'm just not going to do it. So that might be one way you can assess if you're like me, or not. So I think that's good if you don't have that networking. I think networking is great if you have the ability to do so, but if not, and you kind of feel isolated, sort of look towards those professional resources, and oftentimes they have some great reproducibles, or we also have that mathematics coaching handbook, which is great. So, and those have a lot of resources that I've used in the classroom in terms of collecting data for teachers. That's non-evaluative, but just it's sort of a guide, and the field guide is really great because you can actually talk with a teacher and just say, what is something you want me to capture in this class? Is it the number of questions you ask? Is it the number of times you talk versus students talk? Is it the type of questions? Is it the setup of your room, or what the kids are doing, every 5 minutes, that kind of thing? And it's very easy to find something that can kind of capture that data and start conversations with teachers. So those have been pretty great to have as resources. And then if you do have someone to collaborate with to kind of check in, hey, I've used this and it's really this resource and it's really great. And always people have great in this field. I've always found people have great ideas and great resources, and everyone's really willing to share a lot of them.
So we're going to ask one more question to the group. I'm going to give you choice because I want to give you some options here. I feel like you've given a lot of advice over the course of the last almost hour. So you can either give one more word of wisdom to someone who's in the role or entering the role, or you could share what your personal motto is. So as you think about, you wake up in the morning and you're going into work, and what's kind of the words that you live by. So you can share either or. Just going to go whoever feels they'd like to start.
Okay, I'll start. Something that I always think about in terms of decision making is just, I call it O squared, optimizing opportunities for all students. So whatever decision we're making, I just try to ensure that that decision will optimize opportunities for our students so that we can move them forward in whatever they want to be. And we know that mathematics is essential to that, so that's sort of like my motto is O squared.
I think they were hoping you would go at the end.
Yeah, well,
I set the bar a little high here.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
Exactly.
follow her. She even has t-shirts made. All right, so whoever wants to follow that would be good.
Awesome. Maybe a piece of advice too. I think it was a tough decision to leave the classroom because I loved teaching every single day. I was not burnt out at all with my job. I loved it. But just going on a challenge for yourself to try something new, and you're still a teacher at heart. You're just the teacher of teachers. It's a different way of teaching. And don't judge the first year as anything, really. It's just your learning year. This is only my second year in the job, and I'm so happy that I stuck to it for a second year. I love what I do again, and I think that it was just a learning year that first year. So stick to it.
I was gonna say, with my vast amount of experience, that I found that it's okay to let teachers know that although you may be a resource and a support for them, that you don't know everything, but that you're willing to provide the avenues by which they can get the answer or you can get it for them. But it's okay to not have absolutely every answer whatsoever, as long as you can facilitate them getting the answer and the resources that they need, that you're still serving them.
My thing would be to take advantage of the strengths of the team that you're working with. Every member of your team has strengths, and figuring out what those are and really focusing on those, getting them involved in presentations, getting them involved in other things will help boost you up, because you'll be able to see more directly the impact that you're making.
The one thing I was thinking was stay focused, just because a lot of days I just have to step back and remember that my purpose for being in the building, and my focus on mathematics instruction, and just making sure that I'm targeting that, and there aren't a lot of other things getting in the way of that. So just staying focused on my goal.
I'm going to follow up on that because I was thinking stay focused and stay positive. I think that we just have, it's sort of a joke, I feel like, amongst some of us, where it's like, you just have these like revolving to-do lists, you know, that it's just one thing gets crossed off and 3 things get added, and I think sometimes that can get a little defeating, because it's always waiting for you the next day or once you put your kids to bed that night. But on your drive home, I mean, there are some days where I just have to say, like, I did at least 3 great things today. So I need to think of those 3 great things, and I need to remember I'm going to do 3 great things tomorrow, even though there are these 6 things I need to do tomorrow at least, you know, but just staying positive and really reflecting and making sure, like Matt was saying, we got to reflect and just making sure that you remind yourself that even though you didn't get to do everything today, you got to do the important stuff and you did some things well, and you can get right back on the other things the next morning.
And I think I would reiterate what everyone was saying here, and I always like to think that it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. So even though you think you're going to get to an end place, you're probably not. And it's like an ongoing cycle, and that's okay. And you just keep focused and keep positive and keep going. All those things that everyone said, keep learning. I mean, it's an ongoing job, just like teaching. So it just looks a little different.
O squared.
O squared.
And eat lunch. Okay, so on that note, on behalf of the Maryland Council of Teachers of Mathematics, I want to thank you for tuning in today. To our viewers, I want to thank all of our panel members for taking time out of their busy schedules to come in and talk about what mathematics coaching is and give some advice. Stay tuned. Go to marylandmath.org if you're interested in additional upcoming events that we're having in the area. Some are going to be face-to-face, some are going to be online in different formats. So we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.